Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's very special webinar. Today, we're talking about technology down the road that could help impact your district. And we have a great panel that's going to really walk through some stuff that we haven't talked about before. Before I get to that, though, I just want to wish everybody, I know it's only the 14th of November, but I want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. It's a little bit early. Anybody who knows, we are very thankful. We're a very thankful company. Tony, who can't be with us right now, but is we're always talking about being grateful and being thankful. I love Christmas for sure, but Thanksgiving, it always feels like to me that it doesn't have all that pressure that Christmas does, unless you're the one making the meal, then that's a whole different story. But just to get to see who is active with us right now, I want to test something. We have you can input questions and comments into the discussion. We want people to be very active during these webinars. And so if you could just put in what you're thankful for this year, I can just read out what people say here. But give me one thing that you're thankful for, and I'll ask our panelists that too, guys. We didn't rehearse that yesterday during our dry run, but one thing that you're thankful for. Okay, a safe school startup, William said. That's great. Somebody else, I want to hear what you're thankful for this year. My job. That is excellent. A lot of people sometimes think work is a pain in the neck, but really, in these tough economy times, it's good to be thankful for our jobs. Keeping the buses rolling, said Roger. Very good. That was Tammy, by the way, about her job. Others, keep them coming. Let's see. My God, family, country, kids. That's all one person, by the way. That's good, Scott. Thank you. Supportive coworkers. Lejeune, thank you. My health, excellent. Yeah, we can never take that for granted. So we have a lot of things to be thankful for, and I know that there's many, many more. You can keep coming. I'll look at those. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. My family, thank you, Kelly. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We have a great panel. We have some new folks who haven't been on a panel before. We also have a veteran now, I think it's safe to say. We're going to talk a little bit about driver apps in general, Wayfinders, Transfinders, driver apps. So we're going to get a little more specific in that, since that is what we're most familiar with. And the panelists are going to give us more details on how they use it, because they're in the field, they're using it. And what's great about it is, I don't think we've ever had a webinar that dealt with driver apps before. So I'm personally very excited about that. So if you could all just buckle in, be ready. We're gonna get ready to start having a nice interactive conversation. And one thing I want to mention early on is that we want these to be conversations. And so if you have a question specifically for one of the panelists, because we do have a different range of districts that are represented here, large schools and small schools, Southern and upstate New York, and all in between. If you have a specific question for someone, that's great. If you want to open it up to the panel, or if you have a thought of what works for you, that I hear Tony, are you on?
Yes, I am
Sorry,
on.
I didn't see that you were on. Well, Tony, you want to say a few things to the folks that are on?
Definitely. I heard everything about the thankful, and this is the time of year. I mean, we shouldn't be thankful just around this time of year. We should really be thankful throughout the year, but it's there's a lot to be thankful. Obviously, with the community and the group coming together, there's the collaboration of so many different clients of ours are giving us some good feedback. And you got a great session here today. And one of my favorite topics, obviously, is the driver app. And really, it's coming back around with so many different names. Obviously, it's Wayfinder, but it's significant improvement from just the concept we had probably about 6 years ago. Was one of those glimpses into the future during our annual client summit. And as you guys remember, people are like, oh, that's a pretty cool idea, but it's significantly more than just here's a navigation. It's such a better tool that, and so many people are using it, but I'm sure we'll hear some good things about it. Obviously, this is going to get recorded, and what's exciting is that you can go back and hear what people are saying. And I'm hoping there'll be a lot of good questions. So please get those questions going. We'll try to get them answered as fast as possible. But again, I'm grateful for definitely our clients for giving us feedback. And we always want to hear the good, the bad, ugly. I'm very grateful for the Transfinder staff that really keep pushing each other to do better. And obviously, we all do this because of our family. And so I'm personally grateful for my family to have given me the freedom to work as many hours as I do, because without their support, I don't think we would be at where we are right now. So now, of course, grateful for everything. So that's about it, Rick. So thank you for let me just say a few words.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you could. You know, the other thing, Tony, what's great about it is we did a dry run yesterday, and these guys are deep into Wayfinder. So there's things that I learned yesterday just talking to them, and they actually just mentioned before we got on just now that they've even learned from each other. So that's what these things are all about. Learning, learning, learning. All right, Bridget, you can go to the next slide. I'd like to introduce our panelists. If you guys could pop on. I got Keba Baldwin. This is his very first webinar with us. He's with Prince George's County Public Schools in Maryland, large school, and he's the new director there, correct, Keba? And so he's going to talk a little bit about his baptism by fire. We got Matt Schultz here. He's with Hilton Central School District in our neck of the woods, sort of, Rochester area of New York. So welcome, Matt. And last but not least, we have Craig Henson. He's with Tuscaloosa School System. Craig, thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
Well, doing well, thank you.
Craig's got an interesting story too, and I'm going to let him share it. But he's a huge believer in Wayfinder and driver apps in general, but specifically Wayfinder, and has actually made a significant contribution to his state of Alabama there. So thanks so much. Well, I'm going to start with Craig actually, and I'll work down the line to Keba and Matt. That's how you guys line up on my screen, and just talk a little bit about your career. You know, if you've been at different districts or how long you've been at your district, and then tell me a little bit about the scope, the size of your district, maybe how many students transported, and how many runs, how many buses, bus drivers, whatever it may be. And then, and also, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Just give us a little bit of that, a taste of who you are.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Craig Henson. I'm Coordinator of Transportation for the Tuscaloosa County School System in Alabama. This is year 30 for me as an educator. I started in the classroom as a high school band director, moved on to become an assistant principal. Since then, I've been a middle school, elementary, high school, and K-12 principal. Now a district administrator. Been in the role as a district leader now for 5 years, and thoroughly enjoy the changes and the multitasking that goes on every minute of every day. A little bit about our district. We have about 19,000 students enrolled in our county school system. We're the largest landmass in the state of Alabama, covering 1,250 square miles every day with our buses, morning and afternoon. We have registered about 13,000, and we transport about 10,500 with about 250 buses and about 270 routes. Currently, as of last night, we are very, very proud to only have 2 positions available that don't have active drivers. So welcome to everyone. I'm glad to be a part of this and to learn together with you. And I certainly will be willing to help any of you that I can further down the road.
That down the road, no pun intended. And Craig, by the way, means it. After we get our dry run yesterday, he shot me an email with some great points, and I actually made it a slide. We'll share it in a moment. No need to share it yet, Bridge. But Craig definitely means it when he says he's willing to help. You're talking to other states as well, and we'll get into that as well. Keba, you don't quite have the same driver shortage situation that Craig does, down 2 drivers. Tell us a little bit about you, your career, the company, the district that you're at, and you're down a little bit more than 2.
A little bit more than 2, right? A little bit more than 2. Again, I'm Keba Baldwin. I'm the Transportation Director of Prince George's County Schools in Prince George in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. We border Washington, D.C. We service about 130,000 kids. 85,000 we transport on our school buses. I have roughly 1,250 buses to go along with 1,100 routes, in which I have a little shortage. We're right now calculating right under 200 drivers short. for the year. So the technology with Wayfinder, the Transfinder products has helped us tremendously for coverage and maintaining some on-time arrivals. I've been in education for 20 years. I started as a middle school science teacher, worked way up to administration as an administrator, and then I worked several years as a student services director in North Carolina. Actually is where I started. And so from a student services director, I had a request to take over transportation temporarily. 3 years later, we were still in it. And so that was my start into transportation, coming from the instructional side of the house in education, public education here. So very thankful for the experience. I think it does give me a well-rounded view, both inside and outside, looking in those windows to support transportation in general and to our students that we serve. So thoroughly enjoy it. Thoroughly enjoy the challenges that it brings every day, and just looking forward to networking and just talking with other folks in the field that have the same objectives to make this work on all aspects that we serve.
It's great to have folks like you and Craig with that administrative background as well, because, you know, number one, we're seeing that this really is becoming much more of a professional role. It's a career. I mean, I think some people are going to start to maybe just seek out becoming transportation directors, you know, as a career path. But also, you can go to the school board, you can go to the superintendent, you can talk the language. And I think we're talking more and more, and almost every one of these webinars, we hit on a little bit on having a seat at the table. And so picking, you know, your guys' brains about, you know, best approaches to talk to leadership is super helpful too. So just having someone with, you know, your background is super valuable in the role that you're in now. So 3 years and you're still in it. So it didn't scare you away.
Oh no, not one bit. It's been now about 10 years since I took
great.
over that transportation.
Well, welcome to Prince George's, their special district for sure. Matt, last but not least, tell us a little bit about your career and your district.
Of course. So I was prepared to get on here and say, hey, I have kind of a different background than most transportation directors, but it's very similar to what you just heard. So I was a history teacher for 10 years at a high school level, and transitioned to become an assistant principal at a different high school in the same area up in Rochester. And I had an opportunity after about 15 years of all of that to get into transportation, and kind of jumped at it. And the district was lucky enough, or I was lucky enough that the district entrusted me to try it with very little experience in the transportation field, but I've loved it. Just, you know, like the other two gentlemen said, it's the challenges are exciting to work through for sure. And no day is the same. And so I appreciate that. So as much as I was going to say I'm kind of unique, doesn't sound like I'm that unique.
Maybe not today, but in general you are probably.
Yeah, 100%. So in terms of our current, you know, transportation department here in Hilton, we're smaller for sure than Keba and Craig's districts. We have about 4,000 kids that we transport. We have about 100 buses and about 87 active routes that we do. And that's pretty, for our area, that's pretty big. We're on the upper end of school districts here around the Rochester, New York area. And just like a lot of other places, we're struggling with driver shortages. We have about 8 runs that we cover every day, and there are times when I have to drive, or mechanics drive, or other office staff have to drive. So that's about me and Hilton Transportation.
Great, thanks so much, Matt. You know, and the driver shortage, I do want to talk a little bit about it. We talked about it yesterday during our dry run. You know, even like Wayfinder. So we're talking, you know, again, we're going to probably drill deeper in Wayfinder because that's the product you all know, and obviously we're most familiar with. But, you know, you can look into, you know, if you have a driver app, hopefully this will resonate. But, you know, a driver app really plays a role. Wayfinder can play a role in even recruiting new drivers. Keba, you touched a little bit on this yesterday. I want to jump into that, but I want to just set the table with some of the technology you have in your district, how it's helping you solve problems. I know, Keba, you mentioned having, you know, you've got, you know, Route Finder Plus, you've got Wayfinder, you've got Stop Finder, which is the parent app, and Viewfinder, which kind of gives a bit. How is that helping you overall run your operation, keep the buses on the road, getting there on time and back safely and all that? Give us a sense of how all those things work together. One of the things that I don't want to over talk here, but just the idea of having a platform. Plus is the platform. Craig highlighted that yesterday. That's the platform which everything else is built on. Then you have this seamless interaction as opposed to getting different pieces, different places. So tell us how it's working for you.
So we look at it several ways. So the platform with Routefinder Plus sets the stage, and then our external folks that we serve with our schools and our families and our drivers. So the Plus allows us to create our routes and then push that information out to all of those groups. So for our drivers, that's the use of the Wayfinder app. For our parents, it's the StopFinder app. And our school folks, they use our Viewfinder. So being able to have the Routefinder Plus system create our routes, we are able to set the stage for how our picture looks every day, and then be able to push that information out to those different groups is very important. Communication is very important when you're serving the students that we serve and trying to fulfill the demand that is expected of us. We want to have timely information. And so centered around the Routefinder Plus, a one-touch system and then disseminated information to all the necessary groups is vital. And that's kind of what that Transfinder system does for us.
Keba, you also mentioned yesterday a unique approach that you had that kind of helped with the transition with the multi-tier approach to help mitigate some of the impact of the driver shortage by maximizing when they, you described it better than I could. How does that system work? Because I think somebody that's watching this may benefit from maybe struggling as well with a driver shortage.
So we use our StopFinder app for our substitution, as well as some parts of our Wayfinder. What happens is we're able to substitute and send it out on a tiered basis for our open routes. Our lots do a great job in having to split, they combine, sometimes we double, and that information is then sent to our communication team and is pushed out to our parents through the Stop app as well as a robo system, so that we keep our parents up to date with timely arrivals. And so it's kind of like putting a puzzle together every day, but the use of the Wayfinder app and the StopFinder app, what's going on with our attendance from that standpoint, allows us to keep on top of a communication chain to share with our stakeholders.
Very good. Matt, how about you? Can you share a little bit about the technology, what you have in your toolbox, how it all is working with you? You also mentioned a driver shortage, but it doesn't have to be just about the driver shortage. Any other, challenges you may be facing? Has the technology played a role in helping you kind of overcome that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we met yesterday briefly, we talked about Routefinder Plus. We made the transition to that probably a year and a half ago, and that allowed us to do a lot of different things. It's very intuitive. It's map-based. It allows routers a lot of different tools, but the two that I wanted to talk about, one is called the Route Optimizer. So within that system, you can select any route, and when you think you have the route as best as possible, you can select Route Optimizer, and the system, with its AI features and everything else, will basically evaluate that route in terms of time and mileage. So, keeping kids on the bus a little bit shorter if it's possible, and saving gas costs or fuel costs due to mileage concerns. And it does it in a way that you set up the bus stops left or right or either, and you order those bus stops in whatever number you want. But the system can do a couple different things. Then you can evaluate if you want to update the route for how the system would like it, or if there's things that you want to keep the route as is based on local different considerations. So that's one that we use a lot, and we found on some routes we were able to save some mileage, so it saves us some gas over the course of the year, and also have kids on the bus not as long, which is a benefit for those kids, a benefit for those families. The second big one is called route absorption, and that's a system in Routefinder Plus where you could select 5 routes or 10 routes or 20, whatever you're trying to do, and you identify one of those routes that you want to basically eliminate or absorb into the other routes. So this is a great tool in order to try to address some driver shortages going into a school year, or if you have a couple medical leaves, or who knows what. And so we were able to do that with like 3 different routes, to be honest, where we used the absorption tool. And then we assessed what the system told us, what Routefinder Plus told us, like, hey, is this really going to work? Does it fit with our bell times? Does it make sense with the load of students on the bus? We like to keep our students at elementary schools on the same bus, AM and PM, with the same driver. So we had to take that into consideration, right? But that helped us a lot. So there's some tools within the system that I think are they're very powerful in order to address that. We are just barely touching Wayfinder. We're not nearly as far as the other 2 gentlemen with Wayfinder, but our basic goal is to use it for 8 to 10 drivers, a couple drivers that are brand new. They love it. It really helps them in terms of knowing their route, learning their route. They can learn their route on a tablet, not even while they're on the bus. And I know Craig will probably talk a little bit more about that. I'm not going to steal that from him. But the other 8 or so tablets we use are for what we call permanent subs. So those are good veteran drivers who walk in the door and we say, hey, today you're on this bus, or the next day you're on a different bus. They can take that tablet, load up those routes, off they go. So that is kind of where we are with stuff, and it's super helpful just as we're learning more and more about it. Those are some of the big pieces. There's a lot more, intricacies and, super small details in there, but that's the crux of how we are using those systems right now. That's great.
And Matt, you mentioned even like Route Optimizer can save like 10 to 15 minutes per route, which when you do the math on that, can be pretty significant.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like, we're a district where we have a village and then we have some really outlying areas. So if you go around the block, that could be 7 minutes. And so the system will put everything together and say, look, if you do the stops in this order and kids are old enough to cross on this street, and you still own all that decision making. It's not like you can change whatever stop you want to change. But yeah, certainly if you save 10 minutes a day, 50 minutes a week, I mean, that adds up a lot in terms of time on a bus, time for that driver, but also fuel savings for that route. 100%.
That's great. Well, one of the things that Tony, has said many times is we call it AIO, artificial intelligence optimization, and artificial intelligence can get a bad name, and rightfully so. And one of the things that we highlight is the idea, like, it may help you get to up to 85% of where you want to be, but you always want to have like a set of eyes on it. You always want to have that internal or institutional knowledge, because a computer may see like, yeah, this is the best way to go, but like traffic is terrible in the morning in that location, or for whatever reason there's accidents there, even though on paper it doesn't seem like there should be. For whatever reason, it's a high accident area, and you're not going to have a stop there or whatever. So we never want to replace. 100%, it would be scary, probably. So, anyway, very good, Craig. We also talked yesterday about Plus and other tools that you guys are using. Tell me a little bit, and then we'll get right into. We have a poll question right after this, but give me a sense of what tools you're using and how it has helped you run your district efficiently.
We use Routefinder Plus, much like Matt. We changed over about 2 years ago from Routefinder Pro to Plus, just because of the intuitive nature. And the thing we like best is just being the data hosted by Transfinder instead of locally. But we use Plus and exclusively Wayfinder. We don't use any of the other products currently. But we use those 2 every day, used multiple times a day, and we've had great success with it. We're very proud of the fact that just over a year ago, we conducted about a 1.5 year long pilot study for the use of navigation on school buses in Alabama, and through the use of Plus and into Wayfinder, we were able to get it approved last March in the spring, that now Wayfinder navigation, really any navigation, but we spoke only on Wayfinder because that's what we've solely used in exclusivity. But also the fact that we recommended, and it was passed, that the screens remain on and not go dark. And so any of the listeners or attendees that might be polling their local boards of education and or their state, We've got all the information and glad to share the PowerPoint that was designed, the demo video that was designed to do the same thing. Most spec committees meet in early January, which is just around the corner, and then they would set the specifications for their state for the coming year, coming up in just a couple of months. So I would encourage any of you, our big push of it was the safety. And, you know, prior to Wayfinder navigation, you had two basic, really three basic ways to get a route. Either A, you were lucky enough that you knew the route, or the driver could talk you through an area that you could find it. B, you would rely on reading the route sheet going down the road, which we know is not advantageous. And then lastly, you would most often rely on a child, be it a little child or an older child and a student, that would tell you where to stop, which works great until you miss the stop. Then you've got sub drivers trying to turn around in spots that are not authorized or made for turnarounds. And so we approach safety and let's catch up to the 21st century technology with the idea that we all use Google Maps. Most people now even use those map finder services in their car in their local town just for the traffic info. So there's lots of benefits with that. We're even now exploring the actual live traffic feature that's now available in Route Finder, because Route Finder, Transfinder is coming along with the 21st century movement to say if there's something that can be done to make it more efficient and safer, then certainly that's what we're trying to do. So that was our approach.
We are leading the movement, Craig. We are leading the movement in the 21st century.
Correct.
Not coming along. No, I'm just kidding. Craig, you actually got your taste in transportation as a bus rider because you were the one of those kids that used to tell the driver where to go in each stop, right? Is that what you said yesterday?
Correct. Yeah, my brother and I were the first ones on the bus. I will remember it vividly, 68-1 that we rode with Mr. Frank Posey, and anytime he was out, he would line us up. And then a few years later, we graduated to 72-4. Not to tell my age or anything, but you know, that's a day or two ago. But we were the ones that he always told, hey, you guys are the first on and the last off, so make sure you tell the driver everywhere to go. And we did that as young. I remember doing it as early as second grade. And I'll be honest, some of the best helpers that I have when I drive are often the youngest children. And I joke with them and say, if only you could see over the steering wheel, I would just let you drive and coach you how to drive more than me drive and you coach me how to stop. But that's exactly right.
I love it. I love it. That's a great story. And I just, for those of you who maybe missed it, like Craig literally led the effort in Alabama to bring tablets on school buses and to have them on all the time. Our tablets, as those of you who know, they do go dark. They can, if you want them to, they can abide by whatever your state laws are and local laws are, or district preferences. Craig, you believe that actually it's a distraction to have it go off and on, or even just having it be voice over. You made the argument that they should just stay on.
Correct. Yeah, our plea to the state specification committee in the pilot study that we did, which was myself and about 6 or 7 other supervisors, was that with the screen going dark, the only way to see the screen was for the bus to stop. And so there were many trips that we did during our pilot study that the bus stopped multiple times that didn't require a stop. And we all know when buses are stopped, the elevation is significantly raised for risk of an accident. And so that was our whole plea, is in effort of safety, leave the screen on, because a quick glance is much safer to see the bus en route versus having to stop for the screen to come on. And we actually piloted both ways. We actually started with the screen off because that was the current recommendation of the state of Alabama. And as we progressed in the study, we did it long enough that we had enough data that we could share with the committee that really proved stop time and the number of stops added to a route that were unnecessary because of having to see the screen.
That's great. I want to also just reiterate that any of you who either don't have a driver app and are interested in a driver app, that data may be useful that Craig has. And those of you who want to go before your school board or at the state level, you said you were talking to 4 states, I think, yesterday, correct? to help them with this issue?
Yeah, I know there are several others that are in the process. I know Oklahoma, and I can't remember the others right off, because since we presented, it's opened up doors of opportunity for us to just kind of be share with us, you know, literally no pun intended. There's no need to redesign the same wheel. We're all rolling in the same direction, and we all have the same mission to pick up kids, drop off kids, and do it as safely as possible every single day. So to me, if we have tools that we can share that have already been designed, why should 50 states redesign the same thing when one's already done it that can be shared?
So if anybody is interested, please follow up. Contact us at Transfinder. I'll have the email at the very end of this webinar. I can say it right now, mystory@transfinder.com. Just put something in the subject line like Craig's info or something like that, and we'll get you that info. Craig, you're probably going to get a little inundated, but that's a good thing. I want to bring a poll question up, and then we're going to get into the nitty gritty of the driver app and why it may be important, why you want it. Bridget, if you could bring up the poll question here, and I'm going to go to Keba and then Mark, and then I'm going to end up with you, Craig. What maybe some of the decision making that went into your district getting a driver app. Here's the poll question. Do you feel the need for a driver app such as Wayfinder at your school district? The answer is yes, no, maybe, or I just need to learn more before I can answer this question. So you can take a couple of minutes. Keba, tell me a little bit about what went into your district's decision to get a driver app.
Well, big part was bringing our system into the 21st century as well. As Craig mentioned, we use paper and we use our students, especially if there was a substitute driver following a paper route. Our turns and our streets very narrow in the DMV area, and so we depended a lot on kids in the paper. So we wanted to eliminate that, and being able to use the driver app such as Wayfinder is helping to push us over that hump. Drivers love it. Our new drivers love it. The veteran drivers who are what I call kind of our utility folks who are willing to do any and everything, it's a great tool for them to use because they can just punch it in, pull the route up, and run. And so that's what we like. It's a safer unit for us all together. So and just right now, it's a good best practice for us.
That's great. Thank you very much. Matt, how about you? What was the decision that went into your district picking a driver app?
Yeah, pretty similar, you know. We relied on paper route sheets. We actually, in our district here, have everybody do sub cards. So believe it or not, it's like a 5x7 card per stop, and you kind of flip through them if you're driving.
Wow.
And we just, yeah, and as we went to Plus, you know, through the initial rollout, we learned in a really important lesson, and this might come up. So Rick, if you want me to hold off on talking about the importance of making sure your routes are as tight as possible in Plus, we learned that lesson that all of that work pays dividends when you get to a place where you can use a tablet like Wayfinder. And once we got to that point, we heard from other people that were having success on panels like this or otherwise and said, hey, let's try it. Like, let's start with 8 or 10. We'll give it a shot for some people, whether it's the office or some of those permanent subs that we have. And the rollout has been great. So there's no fumble around with cards. There's no route sheets. You know, the way, and there's a lot of detail within Wayfinder that you can control when you set up the tablets under the settings. You can control the speed of the voice narration. You can control, you know, going into a stop, what's the zone where the system is going to recognize an upcoming stop and the kids' names will be on the screen. You can control when the stop disappears. You can control how close you get to a school when the school is identified. There's a lot of really cool features in there that you can control that make it kind of your own, which is really nice.
Yeah, you said like within 300 feet, or you could really say whatever. That's awesome. Man, I will get back to you. I definitely want you to feel free to go as deep as you want. Because like I said, this is the crowd that yesterday we were talking and I said, sometimes you can go in the weeds and the audience is not like there, but this is the audience that wants you to get detailed. So please feel free to bring that up. And then Craig, how about you in your district? What made it like necessary that you guys had to have a driver?
I think the main thing is just safety and practicality. The idea that we heard most commonly, I don't know where I'm going. We heard the uneasiness in new drivers of not being aware, and particularly those of us supervisors and our utility drivers and our mechanics and shop assistants who are on different buses each day. You know, we have many 270 roughly routes. There's no way for one supervisor to learn those. And even though I might drive one route, bus 8 in August, I might not drive that route again until September or April. And so it just was a more of a practical side and the safety side to say that would that I think it would help, and it has helped more. We started with simply myself and one other person, a route supervisor, using the tablets as we began to clean up. And I think that would be my thing that Matt's already alluded to, and we probably get into maybe even a good transition into. It's only as good as what you put into it. You know, you can't expect to put lemons into the punch and come out with apple juice. You know, it doesn't happen that way. You can't use rotten eggs and make omelets. And so it's a thing of what you put into the Route Finder Plus is really going to become what happens. And so we learned very quickly with the two of us how much work we had to do to get our routing system much cleaner, including pathway, because we really never worried about pathway. We were worried about stop location and stop time and what kids got on the buses at those. But when you bring Wayfinder into the equation, now you worry about, do we pick up on door side or not? Do we let them cross the street or not? Is this a road we don't go down? Is it a one-way street? And you have to put those things in. And I don't say a have to, I should say a get to, because when you key those things in, the better you have all your stuff front loaded, then the better and more effective your usage is on the tablet. But we absolutely love it. We literally use them. We have about 25 users now that use them just about every day. And I would venture to say, even with our new 5 that just came out of class last week, we assigned them all for tablets as well, and even used it in training. With our training now with new drivers, we actually train them on a day with usage of the tablet, because it tells you at 550 feet, 300 feet, 100 feet. And so we use it so they know now the distance of applying the yellow lights to pick up in a rural area. They physically know where 300 feet is. In the suburban areas, 100 feet, they know where the 100 feet diameter is. So it's just lots of good tools that I can't say enough good about it.
That's great. Well, you know, it sounds like as you're talking, all of you guys talking, but it sounds a little bit like Wayfinder kind of helps shine a light on, it gets it out of the computer, it brings it, you're shining a light, it almost like provides even like a tripwire of, oh, this maybe needs to be fixed over here, because we can see it now in like it's out there. Bridget, real quick, can you give us the poll results that we just took?
Sure. So hopefully you can see this of everybody who voted. 58% say yes, they do feel the need for a driver application. Nobody said no. 13% maybe, and 38% just need to learn some more.
Well, that's great, and that's why then I guess we're hitting a nerve. It's why we're doing today's webinar. Because
I'll add this in too. There has yet to be a route that I've driven that I don't come back to the computer and tweak the route to make it even better. The 100% satisfaction that we get as routing is when we drive it and the driver comes back and says, this is the absolutely perfect route sheet. Now, granted, we hold that for that 1 second that they actually speak it, knowing that it will change. But it really is a thing of I've yet to drive a route that it's absolutely perfect. I always find something, and every tweak that's made is making that route safer, not just for when we use it on a tablet, it's safer every time we drive it. The other thing I'll say, the 38% that want to learn more, what we did in learning more is we set up an individual demo with our account executive, and then they even extended it to one of the software guys that really walked us through it. We wanted to have the idea of, can you let us try it for a little bit of period of time? And because of all the proprietary things that go into it, it's just not possible. And we were convinced that it just wouldn't work. We weren't going to buy it until we could try it. And believe it or not, as skeptical as we were, we never tried it before. We saw several live demos. We had several meetings to talk about it. And then we also went into Transfinder community and watched a good bit of the info there, and then even went through the course that's there. And so for those 38% that want to learn more, I would encourage you, reach out to your account executive, set up a demo, set up multiple demos, answer questions. You will find them to be patient and walk you through it. And I assure you, we were very skeptical to do it without an experimentation period. And we've loved it. We've been on it almost 2 years and would not go back if we had to.
Tony, are you, I think we have a thing called try before you buy. Actually, you're right. Are you there, Tony? I think we have something exactly like what you're talking about, Craig. Matt, you were shaking your head when Craig was talking about tweaking, doing a run and making fixes. That resonated, and I think Keba's now knocking. You're not driving, Keba, you're not driving now though, are you? Do you drive too?
No.
I was gonna say, you're,
Unfortunately.
yeah. Matt, you making changes as you come back from a run?
Yeah, for sure. And I think just what Craig talked about, any little, excuse me, any little tweak, any little thing that you might think is minor makes that route safer. And I think on the other side, when parents call and they talk about, hey, when's the bus going to be here? And we naturally look in Route Finder Plus and we find that kid's bus stop, all of that becomes more accurate. If you spend a lot of time in the summer on really making sure your routes are as best as possible because of your experience with Wayfinder, then all the route information, the stop information that's going to go to parents, whether it's through Stop Finder or you push it out through your student management, or if it's good old fashioned paper, those stop times are going to be way more accurate, and you're going to get less calls in the office about, hey, where's the bus? My stop said it's 7:07, but it's 7:20 or whatever the case may be. So I think all of that, for a lot of different reasons, lends itself to just safer, better, more accurate and efficient routes. And certainly I've noticed that when I drive a bus and I come back and I tweak something here, I look at something here just to make that a little bit better.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I got a question here from a panelist, Roger. I don't know who. I'm going to open it up to anybody. Feel free to jump in. You don't all have to answer it if you don't need to. Do you use the computer-generated driver directions, or do you use the knowledge of your local router?
It's a little, I can take that part. It's a little both for us. We have about 482 square miles, but it's highly populated in a lot of areas. And so while we depend on the computer, it's really the driver who's driving, because there may be construction. There are plenty of traffic. You know, we are stuck in traffic, construction issues that come along, and we try to get our updates from our public works department if they're going to do any long-standing work. So then we share it with our routers, we share it with our drivers to be able to change routes as needed. So to answer the question in short, it's a little bit of both that we use still.
Great. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I would say the exact same thing as Keba. In a real world, in an ideal world, in utopia, it would be exactly as designed, exactly as routed, exactly as it is on paper. But in a realistic world, we know that our drivers, if John doesn't ride today, they know they don't have to go. They can turn around here and they can make tweaks to do things that are still safe, but to also effectively get kids home without running that. But we rely both. I will say though, if I'm reading ahead, that the question is probably more so how the directions align to Wayfinder, because that really is a direct correlation. If you look at your routing and do the directions for a route, that will be the pathway that you program, and that's how the navigation will lead you through Wayfinder. And I would presume that's why the attendees asking that question, to figure out the correlation. Is it done more? I will also throw in, we didn't really discuss yesterday, in case that's what it's about, through the use of the tablet. Everyone should know too, the Wayfinder navigation, you can also use that if you need to build routes. And so what we've done with our utility drivers, if we don't need them to drive a particular day, we have them ride routes that we know are more difficult or have older drivers that have been on a number of years. They will actually build those routes with the same tablet. So instead of navigating, and then we give them a certain file type to call it and the name, and we can use the navigation built route to help us clean up the Route Finder Plus route. And then once they build it, if they ever have to drive it, they can actually drive the route from the one they actually built themselves. So that's another feature we didn't really get into yesterday, but it does allow for route building, not just navigation of what's in the computer.
Good point. Good point. Let's talk a little bit about, hang on, I'm going to read a quick question here. I haven't read it yet, so it's a little long, by Tammy. Our drivers act like a router. We just push the button. Our drivers act like as a router. We just push the button and the route and directions come out exactly how they want them. The driver drives them how they want and don't inform me of the changes. And then I find out when the sub comes in furious and informs me it's not right. She did add an LOL at the end, so maybe she's not quite as mad, although it was all caps, part of it was. But anyway, Tammy, thank you so much for that. Does that resonate with anybody?
We fully understand your plight, Tammy. That's a daily struggle, and there's really no way around it. When in Rome, do as the Romans do, and so we know there are some that are going to do what they're going to do regardless, but it is a struggle. We have really tightened down a little more in the way of discipline. If we find that we've told our drivers they have to come in and sit down. If they don't run it the way of the route sheet, they have to schedule an appointment and sit down to change it for just that very reason. But I think that's just one of those things that we have to presume that, you know, here in Alabama in the summer it's hot. We'd love to not deal with it, but it's just something we deal with. And I think on buses, that's going to be one of the things with routing versus nav versus the paper. The driver may or may not do it a slight different way.
Tammy said thank you. A couple quick things I wanted to talk about. One was just number one, the key, you know, when you have StopFinder and Wayfinder, how those work well together, because now you can have ETA and keep parents even more informed. They can know when a bus changes, if there's, for whatever reason, there's been a change on a bus. So if anybody wants to speak a little bit about that, I think, Mark, you have StopFinder as well. Am I correct?
So we do not have StopFinder yet. You know, we've looked into it. I think Keba does. I'll let him speak to it a little bit more. But yes, we know that you can do a lot of stuff with StopFinder. It's the next step for us to kind of look into a little bit.
Good. Okay, I'll make sure I pass that information on, Mark, to the AEs. Go ahead, Keba.
So StopFinder we have, we've added some features. I think when I came aboard, we were still using just the base feature, which was the preview before and after, and listening to parents. You know, I was funny at a board meeting. My parents said I should be able to track my kid like I track my meals from DoorDash. And that's essentially what the StopFinder app does. And so we were able to turn on those features with the route path. We extended some of the viewing times in the PM because that's often the time where our buses run later because of our tiered system, our cascade set, for our parents to view. And so that has been an excellent tool for us for communication. What is shared with our bus lots in terms of our substitution that we do on a daily basis for coverage, and what we do on the fly is through the Wayfinder app and that substitution. So it's a collaborative effort every day, but the StopFinder app has proven useful. One of the features that we're looking at now is actually the two-way communication. We're able to push information out to the parents with any late bus changes or from that standpoint, but we are entertaining what that would look like with two-way communications, with parents being able to communicate back with us. So we'll see how that plays out here.
I've heard good stuff about that. We talked a little bit about it yesterday with helping you reduce phone calls and just setting expectations of parents that I'll get back to you within a 24-hour period. The parent feels like they've gotten their message off their chest, and then you can kind of respond at a time that fits better for you. What about the idea of for whatever reason, if a bus has to come back to the garage and they're not completely done with their run, and sending the rest of that route to another nearby bus. Has anyone done that? Been able to shift using Wayfinder to another bus out? Craig, did you mention that yesterday?
No, typically what we would do would be we would not shift it to another driver. We would shift the driver to another bus and let them carry the same tablet. That way they could just pull up a different route. We don't use it on all of our 250 buses because, like we discussed, you know, those that run the same route every day don't need that information. We primarily use it with those that move from bus to bus. So in a case like that, if we had to end abort a route early for whatever case, we would simply have the driver move to a new bus and not move kids. It's just easier to less to facilitate and move the driver, and they would just change because we have Wi-Fi on our buses with the tablets. You can either purchase the tablet that comes with cellular connection or have a Wi-Fi connection. Either way, it's very economical to do either and or way. It's actually not a expansive cost as most people would think. It's very affordable to do, but I think the idea is we would just move the driver, and with that Wi-Fi or the cell connection, you would just pull up if you're on 1 and go to 32. You would just end the navigation on 1 and pull up bus 32. It also has the features when you're there. If you wanted to, if the driver had driven the first 12 stops, you can literally go through before you launch it and delete those stops on the tablet without it affecting what's going on in your Route Finder Plus. It only affects that scheduled route for that scheduled day in that moment on that tablet. So it's very user intensive without destroying a bunch of stuff that you have. So you would just delete those stops and start where you need to go next, and then it always picks you up beginning from your current location to take you to the ones that you've skipped right where you. It's very easy to cater it to exactly what you need.
Right, great. Got a couple questions here. I do want to make sure, don't let me forget, I'm going to tell you guys now, simulation. I wanted you guys to talk a little bit about simulation because you seem to all like that feature. 2 quick questions. One from John. He says, with substitutions and vehicle changes, how much administrative time is needed to update what a parent may see to keep Stop Finder accurate? Anyone want to tackle that one?
I will. The key to us is the inventory, making sure that we have all of our vehicles updated in Route Finder Plus, and the fact that we are able to assign a driver to each bus. Here I have a union and seniority with buses. So a driver is assigned to a bus. So once that bus is then given a route or trips from our Route Finder system, they're kind of stuck with it. And so what helps us is we kind of do a monthly recap or review of our buses and our driver assignments in Route Finder Plus monthly.
Okay. And then I think this might be also for you, Keba. Are you able to get messages from parents saying students are not riding in the morning?
That is where we want to get to. That's one of the goals with that two-way communication. Right now, parents call. I would love to have more phone calls like that, but typically parents that are good for this, they call into our dispatch center and they share that information with us.
Okay. So eventually they could maybe do it through Stop Finder. Okay.
Yes.
Simulation. Talk about simulation, how it's worked for you, I think some of you have actually used it yourself before you, Craig, I think you said you had done a run, and before you did it, you did the simulation first to refamiliarize. You'd done it before, years earlier, and you refamiliarize yourself.
Yeah, I encourage the use of the simulation feature in conjunction with navigation for the simple fact it gives you a bird's eye view of, you can actually pull the route up, and instead of beginning navigation in the top, you can simulate the route. So you actively watch the vehicle move. You hear the directions that will be given. Lots of times we've actually done that to audit routes just here at our computer. But I like to use it in conjunction with navigation on a route I've never driven, but on a route that I've driven before, I will often simulate it. And then, oh yeah, I remember it goes to this subdivision, this, that, and the other. And then I don't have to use the tablet, or in the event that maybe the Wi-Fi is down on the bus, I can go to the bus that morning with at least an overview of what's taking place and where I'm going to do that. But we train our folks to use the simulation feature with the navigation feature as just a safer mode, instead of waiting till the day of and then inevitably something happens and now you relied on something you don't have. So we strong.
That could be a recruiting tool, couldn't it, as well? I mean, demystifying the whole, like if I'm a sub, maybe just for starters, that's how you guys usually lure these people in, right? Or an aide. But to demystify the route, and then maybe they get more comfortable and then they want to become a permanent driver. So Craig, you put together, and then I can't believe how quickly we're coming to the end. We got 5 minutes. So Craig, I'd like you to just kind of quickly walk. Craig, after we did our drive run yesterday, shot this note to me. I loved it so much. I said, I'm going to make a slide of it. The 4 Ps of navigating Wayfinder. I've had it up there, so you probably have all read it. Hopefully those in attendance. But Craig, you want to give us kind of a quick overview of your which worked for you?
Yeah, just a quick thing that came to mind yesterday after I heard our conversation and learned from what the same struggles that we had, others have had, and shared successes that we've had that others have had as well. But the basic idea is to navigate Wayfinder successfully. I think you have to understand the process. It's going to take some time, and it's only as good as what you put into it. And I think the disaster in the making would be explaining and expecting that it would happen quickly. It's going to take time to get it effective, and the more you work at it, the better you get. Secondly, it requires a plan. How are we going to do the implementation? When you go to Wayfinder, you're going to be assigned an implementation person from Transfinder who helps you implement, that has expertise in the area, but have, again, accurate expectations. And the more upfront planning you do, again, it's only as good as what you put into it. Patience, there are always going to be technology hiccups along the way, and to not expect them would be unrealistic. So expect the fact there will be hiccups, and most importantly, again, allocate your time and resources all along the way. We've been using it 2 years, and we continue to tweak it literally every day. And just exercise patience. And I think I included persevere as a last, because I think it's the most important. Through any kind of use of technology, there are going to be issues, but the best way to improve the usage is to actually get in the field and use it. As a director, as a coordinator, as a supervisor, there can't be things, if you're a manager at a restaurant, you can't not know how to work the grill and expect the people to work. You need to know how to do all that you're asking your people to do. And as they encounter problems, be encouraging to them and persevere through those, because the end result is you're going to have enhanced safety to do it. But I think understand there's a process, and have a plan to navigate the process. As you navigate the process, be patient, and then persevere through the process to get your best end result.
Very good. Good stuff. Anybody want to add anything? Any 2 cents worth?
I'll just add. Yeah, I'll just add quickly, out of these 4, and we talked about this a little bit, I touched upon it earlier. For me, the upfront stuff is like super important, the process and planning. So tweaking everything, making sure Route Finder Plus is as good as you can possibly get it, down to every bus stop, every, turnaround, or whatever you have in your system, because then Wayfinder is going to be a lot better when you get it on your bus and you have it in front of you, or you're testing it out. And yeah, like Craig said, use it, because you're going to learn a lot by using it, more so than just, talking about it or reading about it.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
2 quick questions.
And
One
if I
for
could add something,
yes, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to piggyback on the last part, the patience and the perseverance. It's important to have buy-in from your staff, because you can have the greatest ideas, but if your staff do not believe in it, it goes nowhere. So you have to be able to build that capacity.
Very good. That's excellent. Thank you. Keba, quick question for you on the parent participation of Stop Finder. What is your participation rate This person has a different parent app and they're under 30%. What kind of buy-in, speaking of buy-in, are you getting from your parents?
Well, right now, roughly speaking, we have probably about the 40% accuracy rate on the usage for the app. We're looking for more, but we are also tied to our student information system, and that has caused a little barrier as far as gaining more parents using the Stopfinder app. And so it's always improving. We're actually going to a new student information system beginning of next year. So I'm hoping that will drive our numbers up tremendously.
We can help you as well. That's something we have helped others with, even just press coverage. I talked to many districts who have done some really creative things like parent workshops. One in Garland, Texas. Garland, Texas. Anyway, Texas. That did a billboard even for Stopfinder. So anyway, we can in any way help you drive that participation rate up. That would be great. Okay, we are at the end. I'd like to get final takeaways. I'm gonna ask for Matt, Keba, and Craig to close us out, and then we have a couple quick slides after that. But what's one thing that people who've been on all this webinar, you want them to go back to their office, or you want them to march into the superintendent's office, or whatever it may be? What's that one takeaway you want them to have from today? Mark?
I would just say start small, but start. Like, don't be afraid to have 2 or 3 tablets for yourself as a director or coordinator, maybe 1 or 2 other people. Could be a very seasoned driver that you think would be good with the technology, could be a different office staff member, whatever the case may be. And then just start talking about it and roll out more and more as it gets more and more comfortable. But don't be afraid, just start. We're just starting, and the process has been awesome for us so far. Very good, very good. Keba?
I would tell you to celebrate your milestones. Throughout this project, it's a continuous improvement process. And so as you build goals, celebrate those milestones that get you where you need to be.
That's great. And Craig, close us up.
Yeah, you would put me last, and I've got to follow both great advice there. I think I would say, all in all, we all should always strive to do what's best for kids. And if we do what's best for kids, that's going to be what's safest, because again, I think we all focus on our mission every day, get kids to and from school safely, and everything else is just sidebar. But when we focus on doing what's safe and best for kids, then you're going to find there's really no way to not use navigation to come on board the 21st century, whether or not it's something you know about, learn about it. If it's something you're not sure about, get more information, become educated, and be the beacon for your school system, be the voice or mouthpiece for your kids, for your parents, for your stakeholders, because in the end, our goal is to do what's best for kids, and that's to get them to and from school, and never forget that last word, safely. And if you want to do it safely, navigation is going to be the best and most effective way to do it.
Awesome. Awesome. Could not have said it better. Thank you, Craig, Keba, and Matt. You guys, just amazing insights there. Thanks for all the attendees. I want to highlight here, we're always looking for stories of how you do things that can improve. And again, these are both clients and non-clients. We have featured many, many districts across the country, and what's worked for you. If you have a trick that's worked for you to help recruit, if you've had getting a seat at the table, improving safety, any of those things, I would love to hear your story, and we will reach out to you. Maybe it's a white paper or a partner update. Maybe I'll recruit you to be on a panel, because we want to just keep continuing sharing ideas. That's how we all get better. So you just email it at mystory@transfinder.com, and we will get back in touch with you. And lastly, Bridget's always ahead of the curve here. Our next and last webinar of the year is December 24th. So I can't believe how close we are to Christmas already, but Thanksgiving is still around the corner, so I don't want to rush it. But until then, I just want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to again thank our panelists. And I just hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.